A few months ago, BITCRAFT got announced to the world. It's going to be a community sandbox MMO RPG. What does that mean? Basically, it means no PvP and maybe focusing more on cooperative play and rather crafting and farming features than necessarily combat. It's a stunning visually game and I'm very interested in trying it out. So we're checking it out today with some information gained from some blogs they've done and talking about the closed alpha which you can sign up for right now. If you find this video useful, leave a like and let's go. So the game's being made by Clockwork Labs out of San Francisco and they've got experience with a whole host of people backing it and investing in it, but it originally started out over 2 years ago by just 2 people, with a clear emphasis on cooperative play rather than combat led or PvP shenanigans. So that's the game devs themselves, but what's their pitch? What is the game meant to be about? It is a gigantic world and players will build together to start new civilization. Players will take on skills, they'll be building, crafting, farming, trading and exploring and helping players to cultivate a sheltered village with their friends or establish impressive cities and empires. It's going to be a procedurally generated sandbox world with a focus on deep skill systems, crafting, economics and city building. You won't be tied down to any kind of fixed profession, you will be able to mix it up as you play, and just like a lot of MMOs, the more you do something the better you're going to get at it. You'll awake in a wild world struggling to survive. Once you start exploring the world, the character starts finding artifacts of an ancient civilization and players will discover their connection to that ancient world. All players together are challenged to unearth forgotten knowledge and to build a new civilization. There's going to be no classes, no races or professions in BITCRAFT. Instead, characters become experts in specific skills by using them a lot. It's just like I mentioned, if you do a lot of fishing, you're going to become a fishing expert. So I said that the game won't have any PvP, but not anything that you would pretty much be used to in most other games like this. They may have a combat PvP system, but it won't be added to the detriment of other play styles or game systems. You will be able to play this game solo, but it will be in an online world. You will be able to build your own town as well. Once you've built a town, it can even show up on the map. And towns are supposedly a bit like alliances. Get all your friends to join the same town or even work towards building your own bustling and advanced city. They've got a whole empire system where you'll be able to actually claim a whole piece of land, set up a nation and designate your city the capital. All the cities that you capture will become part of your empire, but bearing in mind it's not a PvP game, it'll be interesting to see how that will actually play out. So far they're not having any kind of fast travel system, so I'm guessing at some point they may have mounts or it's something they want to reveal in the future. In terms of how many players it can handle, well at the moment they reckon there's no actual upper limit. The design of the server may be a bit like Minecraft, endlessly playing it almost, is that you'll eventually just get more lands that more players will join. It might take a long journey for an older player to go to some of these new areas, but it will be possible for all players to interact. They do want BITCRAFT to appear on all platforms, but obviously with the focus on PC first. So the Twitter's been a little bit of a source of information, describing stuff like fishing, that it will be coming to the game. I swear, if a game doesn't have fishing in it at the moment, it's just not really a crafty survival open world game. They've been doing quite a lot of blogs talking about their plans. The world of BITCRAFT will have creatures in it. You will find all sorts of things like deers, cows, wolves. So while the focus won't be on combat, it does seem like there will be some sort of hunting mechanics in the game, or at least something where you may be frightened or running away from some predators. But I'm also keen to point out that there's some mysterious forces in BITCRAFT, the flora and the fauna of the world acting strangely. They've got no plans for any NPCs or management, so you won't be grabbing yourself a bunch of cute alien characters and getting them to farm for you. It's all about actually players helping players. They acknowledge that as it is a MMO and kind of crafty open world survival style game, that it is going to be quite grindy, with the focus being on becoming a true master of your craft. So if that is someone that hunts, if that is someone that fishes, if that is someone that is a woodcutter, to get to be the best woodcutter you can be, it may take some time. They will have roles for merchants as well. They're even suggesting that you've got to be good with numbers if you want to succeed. They've got no plans at the moment to introduce pets, but it might be something to consider down the road. And one big thing that a lot of games have got wrong recently is not being able to start off in the same zone as some of your friends. New World is probably the most recent example of this. So there will be options or ways that you will be able to join up with your friends, although there is no actual fast travel. In terms of the actual map itself, you will be able to terraform it, but you won't be able to do it in a way that could grief other players. They do want to maybe bring in certain features like being able to customize your own flags or logos and such, but again it's a bit too early at the moment. When it comes to places and buildings that players maybe have quit and left the server or the game, they kind of list that they don't want the world to become just a wasteland of these old buildings. but I do think it's cool that you might come across the remnants of a once big nation or big city. So it could be something that they're looking into, but you more than likely be able to get resources from some of the leftover remains from other players. There will be a world map that you'll be able to put coordinates down and use if you get a bit too lost or run away too much from certain areas. And they do include a global auction house, so you will be able to set prices locally for certain areas for certain resources and have that real trade going with logistics between nations, towns and cities. They're pretty clear that they won't tolerate any kind of griefing, and it's something they're going to be looking out for massively. And of course, like most MMO RPGs, they will be introducing seasonal events as they go. Eventually, they want the game to be able to be played on as many devices as possible. That includes mobile. While it's something they're not actually got properly in development just yet, it is something that they've gone for with its graphical style being quite simple, so that eventually, yeah, they're looking to port it across to consoles and possibly mobile too. Now, for big fans of my survival channel that I run, taming is a big feature of most survival games. At the moment, you won't be taming any wild creatures, but it is something they're pretty excited about and may introduce further down the line. In terms of future biomes, they don't want to maybe get too fantastical just yet, but it is something they could examine. When you're in the world, you'll bind to a resting place, be it a bed, a tent or a campsite, and you'll respawn there anytime that you die. You won't drop any of your items currently, but that doesn't mean things might change. And effectively, they don't want the game to be hardcore, that casual players make a simple mistake and lose all their progress. So there will be no permadeath. You're not going to lose your character or any of your stats. But they also don't want the death to be abusable, which New World has suffered from a little bit. Temporary penalties for dying can help cut down on this, but they definitely don't want to make players lose gear or items upon death. The exception to this is possibly some opt-in moments where you might actually choose to take that risk, but that's something optional that they want to add to the game. In terms of the merchants and stuff as well, they do want more customization to be a feature, but it's a bit too early at the moment how that'll actually work. Created images and stuff might not necessarily be something that you can just import from other sources. And someone was asking if there could be some musical instruments, maybe using MIDI files so they can actually play, but it's a bit too early for that. Now the devs have made a whole bunch of different blogs talking about monetization and of course more details on the alpha, which we'll cover. But to save on time, I'll put it pretty bluntly, the game is going to be free to play. That's what they're striving for. They want it to not be filled with boosters or shortcuts that you'll pay extra money to get a hold of, much like a lot of MMOs. Instead, they want it to be cosmetic based. Reading through the jargon, it's a 10-minute read talking all about educating people on what monetization means and what ways they could proceed. They're effectively calling it Lamborghinis and Medals of Honor. And in their definition, it seems like Lamborghinis will be cosmetic items only, stuff that just doesn't affect gameplay, so you're not going to be able to buy progress. That said, in-game items, they want a strong economy to be there. They want players to be able to sell and create items, maybe it could be tools, better equipment, that kind of thing. That will maybe lead to players possibly coming up with their own monetization. But that's their plan, to have free to play as their game starts and keep it free to play always. When it comes to their pre-alpha, they want to make sure expectations are really low. Like basically this is purely just a technical test. There won't be any of the big city building features in the game. It will literally just be you walking around, examining the surroundings a little bit, maybe being able to place some basic items, camps and stuff, but you're not necessarily going to be fighting off other creatures or even interacting with much else. There won't be any sound, any music in the first wave. They basically want to make sure everyone knows they're on the same page. They had over 100,000 applications to take part in the pre-alpha, and they only really designed it for possibly only a couple of hundred. As I said earlier, they will increase the scope of this. They plan to have it running for at least 6 months, but I do feel that if the pre-alpha gets to a good state where they're fixing a lot of the mechanical issues, then they may shorten that and then can move to the next phase. It's all very, very commonplace, but some people's expectations may be a bit too high based on the very cinematic trailer they've seen. And obviously me reading off their wants and what the game wants to be like in a while, then yeah, that might set expectations a bit too high. So they just want you to really be understandable. There's lots of mechanics in the game that simply won't be in the pre-alpha just yet. And there we go, that is BITCRAFT in a nutshell. I hope that's interesting to you. It's interesting to me. It might not see a 2022 release by the sounds of it. This pre-alpha invite system is going to go out before the end of the year. If it does take 6 months, that will obviously be June, July. More betas, closed betas, it could be easily another year. So maybe not until mid 2023. That sounds like a long time away, but it's surprising how often these things creep up. And you never know, as I said, if they get a handle on things quicker, then they may be able to push things a bit sooner. I'm sure we're going to get a bunch more information over that time, but obviously I'm not necessarily going to be making a video about every single tweet. I will try and keep you up to date on maybe a monthly basis and see anything that's come up. If there's something big and news-worthy, or they're showing off a really big mechanic that I can actually show in pictures or video format, I will obviously let you know. And yeah, that is BITCRAFT. An interesting feature. I like the idea of it being cooperative, not PvP based. Will it be interesting enough? Will the gameplay actually be vibing and actually interesting and not boring? That will be the problem with this game, I guess. Is it going to be appealing enough for builders or decorators or crafty players? We'll have to wait and see. But there you go. That's my first look at BITCRAFT. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, check out the rest of the content, and I'll see you later.